Let's go, baby. Find your pirate. Get hype.
Dude, the first game is going on right now.
You'll have to keep me updated because I set up a little podcasting thing in my parents' spare bedroom. No TV.
Hey, screw the Hall of Fame game. I'm not watching either. I'm in my podcasting room.
Hell yeah. I'm excited though to get to turn that on and just see some football on the TV.
Yeah. It's been a long time.
Oh yeah. We talked maybe about 10 days ago, Drew, did our what was it? NFC West we did last.
Yeah.
Man, that was a good one. That was a lot of fun. I still find myself I was clipping some TikToks and stuff, some shorts from that one for at least a week after. I could probably still find some more hidden gems in there. A lot of fun
Dude,
with you on, brother.
we did a good one. I think we nailed that division, if I
Yeah.
can say so myself.
And I'm just kind of thinking we get through all these divisions. We're going to be feeling so confident going into the year, especially that's going to help me all these previews. I'm learning it with college football really hard right now.
Yeah.
Where it's just going to help me so
Yeah.
much with the podcasting and gambling mainly. I'm hoping it helps out the wallet.
I think it's going to help everybody, going through just thinking it through before the season. You've got to have a plan, and what we're doing right now is making a plan for the quarterback position,
Yes.
because here's the thing: in fantasy football, I feel like the quarterback position is where you can really kind of make or break your team.
Okay. I like that.
Because if you if you have a shitty quarterback, you're done. Your team is already done.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because they account for so much points. But the thing is, if you find a great one in the middle rounds and you were able to stack your team at the top of the draft with running backs, wide receivers, maybe one of the best tight ends in the game,
Right.
and you can find a middle tier quarterback, you might win the league.
I like that call, Drew. That makes a lot of sense too, and it's just kind of like real football. You got to have a good quarterback to have any chance at winning. So, I do like. I've always kind of known that, but that now that getting to know the fantasy world a little bit better through your help, that's a. I've never really thought about it like that. I guess
Huh.
just because it is
Well,
one position you start. So that
right.
I feel like I kind of playing off that, Drew. I did think a couple weeks ago we were talking about getting a home league together. I think it'd
Yeah.
be cool if we could get a 16-team league and it's a two quarterback league, and all 32 quarterbacks have to start. You're just picking
Ooh.
up.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to pick up just random guys that are filling in. I think that'd be a lot of fun if we can get the
It could
numbers.
be. You might. One thing you always run into with this, though, is market gougers.
What's that?
Someone who's going to carry three awesome quarterbacks on their roster throughout the whole season.
Oh yeah,
You know what I
to
mean?
kind of screw
And then you've
everybody.
got, yeah, yeah. If you have a perfect number like that, you're going to have
That could be good for
some
content, though.
jackassery.
If we could
It
get
could.
16 guys that are in, I probably have about three or four, maybe from Oklahoma that would play. Um,
Well,
so that's something we can talk about
yeah.
later.
Yeah, we can get into the home league later, but the tier that we're talking about here today, I'm looking at it and I can make a case that if I have not taken a quarterback in the top 100 picks
Uh huh.
of my draft, right? I'm looking at this tier that we're going to go over today. And if I can, I might take three of them,
Wow.
as we were literally just talking about.
You're taking
Because
within how many picks of the draft, Drew? Are you taking these three?
Boom, boom, boom.
Just back all three back to back. That's the system.
We're talking like ninth round, 10th round, 11th round.
I like that. That's some.
Here's
Yeah, go
so
ahead.
here's what I love to do in best ball. I love to draft one position until it gets uncomfortable to do.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And you'll feel it. You'll be like, "Oh, do I really take another quarterback?" Do it. You want to get to an uncomfortable place in best ball because the thing is quarterbacks in the middle round, they might not have a great season altogether, but they will have some outlier
Uh huh.
fantastic games.
And I think my gambling brain, Drew, I'll be able to help you out with that too. Just I know it's kind of set it and forget it after the draft for you, but I do have a. I think I have a pretty good calling of when I know some quarterbacks have some good matchups for certain schemes or whatever the case is. That's something I'm really going to dive into this year with my free time at work. I'm going to really study. I'm going to watch all these games heavy, even more so than I already do. And I think I can. I think I can. I can definitely. We can definitely help each other out with this gambling and fantasy, and that's what we got cooking. I think that's what make this is going to make us special.
Yeah. I think we do because I think you know a lot of the individual players better than I do. I think I just know them by their stats.
You know a lot though, bro. Don't underestimate yourself. Who do we want to get started with first today?
So this first guy is very interesting because he throws to the best wide receiver in the game. And we're talking about the Minnesota Vikings quarterback, Kirk Cousins,
Mm-hmm.
who his right hand man, Justin Jefferson, they just drafted a kid, Jordan Addison, and they've got KJ Osborne. They've
Uh-huh.
gotten rid of Dalvin Cook. So you're thinking, God, this guy's going to have some weeks where he's going to go off, I bet. Maybe not every week. He's pretty consistent, but he's a guy I want to know what you think, Jay, about Kirk Cousins going into
Kirk
this year.
Cousins, man, he's the
Yeah.
polarizing quarterback in the league because he's kind of the barometer for like, okay, if you're Kirk Cousins good, then you do deserve a good franchise quarterback contract. And that's what's not to get sidetracked on Baker, but I can. Baker's one of my favorite players just from his OU days, but I think he's kind of gotten a raw deal contract wise because I do think Baker Mayfield fits in this Kirk Cousins realm. We'll see how good he can be in Tampa. I like a lot of the things they're doing down there, but with Kirk Cousins, I mean, people that don't watch. I don't want to sound like NFL hardo, but people that don't watch enough, they'll see Kirk Cousins in a primetime game and they'll say, "Oh, he sucks. He's trash." When in all reality is, Drew, Kyle Shanahan wanted Kirk Cousins to be his quarterback.
Absolutely.
Um, Going back at their time at Washington together, people that are around Kirk Cousins, I love the new coach Kevin O'Connell.
Yeah.
People that are around Kirk Cousins, he's got that leadership. I mean, you saw the chains on the team flight last year. I mean,
Yeah.
say
He
what you want
knows who
about
he
the
is
guy.
and he knows what he is.
Say what you want about the guy. He's gonna put up his numbers and he's gonna be respectable. And that's, is he a top 10 quarterback? No, but he's right there on that edge, and I think that's valuable for real life and fantasy. I think he brings
You
a
know,
lot of value.
I think about a couple of games. Did they play like one of the biggest games this last season? I want to say it's like against the Colts or something, where it was like 50 points
Uh
on
huh.
the board. There was
That
something
was
like
the
that.
craziest game of the year.
Yeah.
No, and that Bills game they played in.
So I think about, yeah, the Bills would, when you have a guy who's capable of that and looking at this offense might even get a lot more passes this year. because they've just let go of Dalvin Cook. It just feels like, they drafted the kid in the first round at wide receiver. It feels like they're headed towards a place where they're going to be throwing the ball a lot.
Uh-huh.
It's an offense that's capable of some of those big time scores last year.
Yeah.
Kirk Cousins going into, he's an unrestricted free agent at the end of the year.
Ooh, contract
He's
year.
he signs short-term deals, and he knows that he wants to move on and put himself in a situation where he can win a Super Bowl because he believes he is a Super Bowl quarterback.
I love that.
I like to take him.
I like
And
I
I
like
love
that stance, Drew. I like
yeah.
that stance on Kirk Cousins. You laid it out pretty well, and yeah, the more I think about it, man, they are going to air that thing out, and that's the offense they ran last year. I mean, they did run the ball because Dalvin Cook is a talent, and they wanted to feed him. But that KJ Osborne too, I've always liked him. I think they
He's
can do that.
so
Wide
here's the
receiving core is
thing.
interesting.
I'm just amazed by in fantasy football you can go 8 rounds until you have to take Kirk Cousins in the ninth round. Hell, you can maybe even let him slip to the 10th,
Uh huh.
right?
I'm looking. His ADP is 99. That's
So
uh that's a steal. I mean,
it's a
whatever
steal.
round that is.
That's the ninth round. So
Yeah.
you're looking at you filled your team with 4 running backs, 4 wide receivers in those top 100 picks, and now you're getting to your quarterback. And our strategy is you can maybe take 3 from this list that we're talking about. That's a
Hmm.
hell of a way to start off your fantasy draft here. So
Yeah.
because it's best ball, you're going to have some weeks where Kirk Cousins is going to go become a monster, I believe. And
Hmm.
then you might also consider taking a guy like this next guy, Danny
Let's hear
Dimes.
it. Dimes.
Danny Dimes is sitting there, and this is a guy who is just you look at him and you would me personally, I like to think when I look at him, I see bust. But he continues to just shock me with his abilities.
Uh huh.
Um, and so he's got a different looking offense this year, but he got the bag this offseason. I want to know what are your
Yes, he
thoughts
did.
going into this year for Danny Dimes?
I honestly think he's gonna build off what he did last year. And it's hard to say. It's hard to separate Daniel Jones from the Dayball system because I think Dayball runs one of the best offenses, if not. I say Kyle Shanahan, probably him and Andy Reid are like 1A, 1B. I love this Dayball system. I think it's right there in that top five of just pure offensive systems, quarterback friendly. Um, I also want to shout out the Lions. We'll get to the Lions. We'll do NFC North. We're gonna do AFC North after this. We'll do NFC North next.
We'll
I
talk
think
about
the
the Lions
Lions.
quarterback shortly.
I think the Lions have one of the best offensive coordinators in the league. Ben Johnson, I think, is his name.
Yeah,
Um, so Jones Dimes, man, he has that nickname for a reason. He can get hot, and I think
yeah.
he's slept on. He's a Duke guy. He went to a smart college. He's got that chip on his shoulder. We talked about Saquon and how he and Saquon kind of have a little bit of a they're kind of bros with each other. And I think that's big because Saquon is he has respected that whole team just because he's such a talent, and then that just gives Danny Dimes the freedom to be the leader of that team. And I think you saw that last year, and it's hard for me to say he's going to take a step back from what he did last year. I don't. How valuable was he last year, Drew? Was he a top 10 quarterback? I assume so.
I mean, he was sitting right around this tier last year. He was not okay, maybe top 10 for NFC, but he was not a top 10 scoring
Mm,
fantasy QB.
yeah.
He's right in this tier. And here, my hot take on this is Danny Dimes. I don't pick him. That's my hot take.
Oh
I,
shit.
you know, Danny Dimes, when he's running, he runs the ball. That's a thing. It's like Danny Dimes crushed the over on his rushing yards in a game.
Yeah.
I think he's running for his goddamn life because he's he's
Yeah.
got the pressure coming from all over, and he's this way, that way, go, and
Hmm.
he's lucky if he gets the ball out of his hand. I think they overpaid him. I think he's now got a pile of expectations weighing on his shoulders, and
Right.
if it's one thing if you're on your rookie contract, the fans will start to let things go. But when you
Oh
got a
yeah.
shockingly big contract and
Yeah.
you squeezed your organization for every dollar, your fans are going to start to look at you a lot closer, and they're going to demand consistency and excellence. And I just think that there's going to be some problems in New
Hmm.
York is
I
my
agree.
my hot take.
That's a great analysis, bro. I kind of look at it from the standpoint of, so they did sign Saquon to a 1 year, like $11 million deal. Since we talked about Saquon last pod,
Yeah.
I think they're gonna run Saquon into the ground this year, and
He's
maybe
not
take
going to
maybe
let him.
not.
He was pissed. I think he's another part. Both of these guys were up for contract, and they did the wrong thing. They should
Mhm.
have given Saquon the big deal, and they should have tagged Dimes and seen one more year, Danny Jones. One more year, you prove it to us that
Yeah,
you're the guy.
yeah, I get that take. I am kind of bullish on Dimes though. I do think he's just from the mental standpoint, I think he's got a chip on his shoulder, and I do think he's a good leader, and it's really that and the day ball thing is
Yeah,
why I do think that Giants fan base, they want to win.
right.
They're not going to let him get away with just making a wild card appearance. They did beat the Vikings last year, so we do need to give
Yeah.
them that respect.
The other
Um,
thing is, I mean, I will say they did add 31-year-old Darren Waller. A lot of
yeah,
people have high expectations for him. Me, I don't. I think Darren Waller has been on a downhill slide for the past 2 years.
uh huh,
But um, you can look at that and say that okay, that was an upgrade over whoever it was, Daniel Bellinger or something. Uh,
yeah. He's
um,
not bad though. Don't sleep on
he's
him.
not bad. He's not bad. But I hate their receiving core. I mean, I think they've got one of the worst in the league.
Hmm.
Um,
Can't disagree
Isaiah
with that.
Isaiah Hodgins, and just they don't have a number one, and I think there's going to be some problems in New York. It's going to be lofty expectations, and I
Uh
think
huh.
you could see sloppy football. Dayball is the only glue that might just hold this structure in place for a little while.
Yeah.
But
He
know,
was so much fun last year. I love Dayball, man.
he was. He's a great guy. He got
um,
them riled up.
you want to keep it moving? Who we going to next?
So this is a guy who I don't know. Was he comeback player of the year? Geno
Gino?
Smith. Yeah,
He was.
comeback player of the year. Just a fucking amazing story.
Uh huh.
Uh, and it was all during Pete Carroll giving the big middle finger to Russell Wilson, and it just so worked out for the Seahawks last year in such a big way. Uh, and this guy was at the center of it all. I mean, Geno Smith was lights out, and you're looking at a team that's added the what a lot of people I mean, the pure consensus was Jackson Smith-Njigba was the best receiver coming out of college.
Yeah, I agree with that. He was
I think
mine.
his coach even said this kid is better than Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave is something I heard. Like, and you're adding that to the mix with DK Metcalf and Tyler
Uh huh.
Lockett, and you've got
Yep.
Gene Smith. So I want to know, what are your thoughts on this guy
Love
going into the year?
love that. Love the weapons around him. Love his situation. You know,
Yeah,
I after we talked about the Seahawks on our divisional preview, I went out and bet them when I got my paycheck, Drew. I put my money where my mouth was. I bet them to make the playoffs,
great.
and I think I bet them. I think that's the only bet I did with them. I was thinking of, I think I did their win total over. I might get to that at some point. Still, I mean, the offensive line is what I like here, Drew, for
Ooh,
Gino. They have two stud tackles that are coming in, and they're still young, they're still cheap, and it's allowed them to spend some money on Gino. And I just think the Seahawks have an infrastructure there where I don't know. I'm looking at his stats last year. He threw for over 4,000 yards. I don't know if he's going to quite do that, but I mean, you got to think it's not going to be too big of a drop
he
off.
was 4,282 yards, 30 touchdowns, 11 picks, 366 rushing yards.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I love that wide receiving core, man. That's it's one of the
Yeah,
best in the league. Um, and I found myself drafting a lot of DK and a lot of Smith and Jigba.
awesome.
Um, so Geno, Geno Smith, man, what a career! You know, getting punching a teammate as the Jet when he's with the Jets. You know, and then just serving his time, just
Yeah.
biting his time, and you
Uh-huh.
know,
He's got still Drew Lock sitting behind him on the depth chart.
ooh,
Uh, I think Pete Carroll, he would never bench Geno Smith if he's doing well, but I think he really wants to see Drew Lock play a game. But
he'll be a preseason guy to keep an eye on.
oh yeah, but
That's what I love about preseason. You'll probably see it tonight with whoever the quarterbacks are. And that's why, Drew, I would love for you to get into college football just through just being around me because one of the things about preseason, dude, is I just recognize all these names because they're just like they were good college players, but they just couldn't make it in the NFL. And that's what like all the quarterbacks are. Like I can't wait to see who like the quarterback is tonight. Probably just some cast off from NC State. It's gonna
yeah,
be beautiful.
no, you've got Zach Wilson going to.
Oh, it's the Jets, right?
Yeah.
Are we gonna move into the Jets and Aaron Rodgers conversation?
Well, I think you and I are both in agreement that Geno Smith is a guy to target. And if you compare him with Kirk, even better.
I
And
do like that. I
uh,
like that thought.
it's a great one. And then now you're talking a guy who's actually, I'm looking at him and he's risen a little bit in the past week or so. You got the old kicking and screaming Aaron Rodgers, who just seems to be, I mean, he is just on a honeymoon with the Jets right now.
Hey,
I love him. I love his
yes.
personality. I think he fits New York.
Mm-hmm.
I, you know, everyone's gonna have some hot takes, and I think you were saying you got an especially hot take. What do you think of Aaron Rodgers going into the year?
Aaron Rodgers, discount double check. He's a bad man,
Yes.
like Stephen A. Smith would say. And guess what, Drew? Saw a hot take of the week, and I thought of this before even the Sean Payton stuff, all that stuff came out this week. I was thinking in the sauna Saturday morning, just AFC North. I was trying to think of something hot for the AFC North. And I have a lot of thoughts on that division. We'll get to it soon. But Aaron Rodgers. I can't stop thinking about him putting the Jets uniform on in New York. He's loving it, bro.
He is.
Sauna hot take of the week. You know, Aaron Rodgers. I'm ready to get into this, Drew. Aaron Rodgers dated this actress, Shailene Woodley, recently, and I just she was in like one of my favorite rom coms ever. The Spectacular Now. Stay with me here.
I'm with you.
The author of that book is from Oklahoma, and I just relate like so well to that movie. Miles Teller's character. I like think I'm that character just to a lesser degree. And I say all this because Rogers is a very philosophical person like me, and I just the older I get, Drew, I can relate to Aaron Rodgers, and he's not on the Packers. He's not really a rival of the Cowboys. I'm ready to go all in on Aaron Rodgers and the Jets. I've already bet them to win the AFC at 9-1. I've already bet them to win the division.
Wow.
This is and just moving from Green Bay, Drew, to New York City. I mean, that's me. I've been living in small town fucking bullshit, and I'm living bright light city life now. And I'm fixing to get up there full time, like Rogers is. And you know what, Drew? You know, I placed all these bets. He's gonna win the AFC this year, his first year. They're gonna go to the Super Bowl. That's
I
my
love
hot
it.
take.
Wow. Wow. That's huge
And
hot take.
and all the Sean Payton. Did you hear that quote this week?
Oh yeah.
I mean, that just adds fuel to the fire. So I guess Sean Payton was bad mouthing Nathaniel Hackett. That's the
Uh,
OC up in New York, and Rodgers' big buddy. He was saying it was the worst coaching job in NFL history. Rodgers just goes, I think he needs to keep my coach's name out of his mouth.
uh-huh.
And I just, Sean Payton has some good points. He's a great coach, but I just appreciate Rodgers taking up for his guy. You know,
I
that's how I live. I'm a loyal guy like that. And Rodgers, I'm not going to root harder for any other player this year than Aaron Rodgers.
I love that sauna hot take. Um I think he's also okay. I drafted him a lot last year in fantasy football. He
Oh,
disappointed.
yeah, he did. There's
I
no
mean,
denying.
and I just have a tough time seeing so much of a difference turn around in of one season. How old is he? 39 or 41 or something?
Doesn't matter. Age is just a
Does
number.
It's a number, but his is getting pretty high, Jay.
Drew, I think it was just dysfunctional. It was just he knew he needed to be out last year, and he was just playing. As much as Rodgers is a pro, and he does his film and he gets his body ready, man. It just there's no denying he just didn't have that 10% extra he needed, and he's gonna have that and play on it with a chip on his shoulder. He just did that 2 years ago. Played with a chip on his shoulder and won the MVP. I think there's some things with the Bills. I can't wait to talk AFC East and NFC East. But there's some things with the Bills that I'm thinking, hey,
Yeah,
don't be surprised if this is Coach McDermott's last year if they
yeah,
disappoint again.
no doubt.
That'll be another hot take for me a different week.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I heard
I
they
like
have
the Jets.
I heard they have a Super Bowl banner hanging in their.
Mm-hmm.
That's weird.
Didn't like that.
No. Anyway, I do want to finish up my thought on Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, go for it.
Fantasy football wise, I think I tend to agree with your love for Rodgers this year because
I'm
I
getting the
think
jersey.
I love it. I love number 8. It's going to look good on Jay. So think about this with me, Jay. Over the last 10 years, I would say this is the first year that we're not drafting Tom Brady in fantasy football. I would say over the last 10 years, that dude has been underdrafted
Mm-hmm.
from where he performed. And the reason why he was underdrafted is every single year people used age as a way to say Brady is going to be falling off this year. I'm going to take the third best guy because he's younger and he's improving. Well, guess what? If you ended up taking Brady every year over the past 10 years, you probably would have won your fantasy football championship multiple years within that
Right.
10 span. So I do think quarterback is the position where the fantasy football community will discount a stud quarterback
Mm-hmm.
because of his age. And I think that is where you can find your discount
I love that.
in a quarterback. I like him, but I temper myself because
Yeah.
the stats were the stats last year. No matter how excited he is now, that year still happened. And I could also see the Jets running a very balanced football team. Maybe not. Maybe
Yeah.
it'll be the high flying
I think it's going to be
package.
Rodgers' show.
I think so. You
I
might be
think it's going to be one of the greatest displays. I just think the stars are aligned, Drew. I
I
really do.
might be right.
I think the stars are aligned. I'm going to have my best gambling season. I'm probably going to lose maybe like, I'm probably going to hit like 80% this year. And then Rodgers is going to win MVP. I don't know if he's going to win the Super Bowl, but I got Niners Jets in the Super Bowl. Just throwing that out there already.
Wow.
I'm calling that August 2nd, whatever day it is.
Yeah, that's exciting.
Yeah.
Listen, Jay, let's move on. We have another guy to get to. You've got this exciting Lions team that showed so much promise at the end of last year. And just Coach Campbell, I think everybody rallied behind him. How can you not?
Yeah.
And this guy who's kind of a throwaway for the Rams back in the day during the Stafford trade, he's turned into a guy,
Mm-hmm.
Detroit. But obviously, he just kind of gets the job done. You never really see Jared Goff on the highlight reel.
Uh-huh.
He's got Amon-Ra St. Brown, who is growing into one of my favorite players in the whole league. And they also have Jamison Williams, who is he's going to be back maybe around week 6, I believe.
Right.
Um,
He's
should
suspended.
by all accounts be an exciting year in Detroit. What do you think of Jared Goff at QB 2023?
Yeah, I'm bullish on him. I'm bullish on the Lions, restore the roar. I was hoping they were gonna get that last wild card spot
Yeah.
in week 18 last year. Just they beat Packers in his
Uh,
then Rodgers' last game. I think they got some momentum, but in the fantasy context, I don't know if I can really get too high on Goff just because it's going to be a run team. They're going to run the ball, and I think they're going to be good, Drew, and they're going to play at the lead a lot. And I just don't know if he threw for 4,400 yards last year. I don't think that's happening again.
it's crazy. I mean, he
7 picks. That's probably going to go up a little bit. Um, so I like Goff a lot. He's a friend of the Pardon My Take podcast. I love those guys. They love Goff. So don't want to sound too critical, but I think this is going to be a ground and pound. I think that defense is going to be much improved, and I like the Lions a lot. And it's good for the NFL if the Lions are good.
he's got a great catching wide receiver now. They say this guy Jameer Gibbs, who they took with like the 13th or 14th overall pick.
Uh huh.
This guy is really good at catching the football. He can line up in the backfield. He can line up out wide. He's fast and wiggly as hell. Just elusive as hell, and he can catch the football great. He'll be an awesome check down for Goff, and you can just imagine the yards after the catch that guy is capable of. And like I said, he's Amon-Ra St. Brown is one of the best. I mean, he's ascending to
Yeah, I
top
love him.
five status.
I've seen him, man. He's like up in that range of these drafts of like the elite guys, and I love him. I just don't. I'm sure his what did he end up finishing last year? If you know, Drew, was he like a top five receiver?
He was great.
He had to been up there close.
He was up there close, I believe. And I think the thing that you love about him is you don't have to be too worried that he's going to have a down year. You know
Uh huh.
why? This is a guy. Rarely do you come across guys like this, but this guy is so damn motivated. I heard an interview with him the other day. He was talking to Peter King, and he said, uh, "Oh, after the draft, after I didn't get picked on day two, I was so pissed." He remembers every receiver that got picked above him, and he said, "I was so pissed. Told them all thank you for coming by, and then my brother and I, there's what else can we do except go to work? So we each did a 202." And Peter King says, "What's a 202?" He said, "Well, the best receiver that I ever met, he told me that he caught 200 balls every night. So
Huh?
me and my brother said, let's go for 202."
Love that
A guy like that is not
workhorse.
drop off this year. He's not going to have a down year. He's a stud, and he's going to stay a stud.
I
And
love that.
drafting with certainty, you have to pay a premium, but you pay it, and you have the peace of mind that you're going to be solid there.
Hmm. That's great, Drew, and that fits in though. Dan Campbell and the culture he wants with that Lions team. You
Yeah.
know, he wants lunch in a lunch pail, guys. And it sounds like that's what he's got with Amon-Ra St. Brown, and him and Goff have great chemistry, great connection.
I don't love Goff as a QB. I honestly wish the Lions had a better QB, but listen, I don't hesitate to take him.
Yeah.
I think he's a good guy. He's a good guy to have on your team. He's a safe pick. I think he'll have some great weeks and he'll have some poor weeks.
Uh huh.
And that's what's
Yeah.
with Goff. You've got to pair him with somebody. You
I
don't want
think
to
he's.
be the
I
only
think he has a
QB.
chance. Oh, sorry, not to cut you off, buddy.
Go for it.
I just think he's got a chance to be a better real life quarterback than fantasy. Because I think that Lions team, man, if they don't win 10 games, I think they're going to be disappointed.
Yeah.
So, speaking of a quarterback that was involved in a big trade, are we going with Russell Wilson here to close this out, this quarterback tier?
Yeah. So this is the last guy on the tier. I mean, the way I'm thinking right now is if you've gone your draft and you've taken 8 straight running backs and wide receivers and you feel pretty good at those positions, and then you try and stack 3 QBs,
Uh huh.
Russell Wilson is your third QB you're looking at.
Yeah,
If you're trying to go 3 in a row, you're trying to go from Kirk Cousins to Russell Wilson. And I love the pick, Jay. I love it.
I
I
like
think
that thought, that trio.
because I think he is he's beat down to the ground. His ADP has gone all the way down with him. I mean, this guy could be had last year in no later than like the 6th round.
Mm-hmm.
So
You know what I'm
now
smelling?
I'm I think I know what you're smelling, but I want to hear it. What are your thoughts on what are
I'm
your thoughts
smelling
on
money, boy, bec-
Ooh,
because that's what I call market inefficiency, Drew. The
absolutely.
Broncos are going to be a bet on team for me early in the year, at least, especially at those home games. It's hot outside, the altitude. I always bet on them in September. And I think man, I know we talked about Sean Payton. I think he's kind of in the wrong with that Hackett thing, but Hackett was awful. I mean, let's not sugarcoat that.
Yeah.
Sean Payton is he's a great offensive mind. I just don't see how as long as Russell Wilson is he going to run this year? That's my big concern, I guess. Is he going to run?
Well, last year he looked so lost. I mean, he looked so lost. He falls into that category that I was talking about with Daniel Jones, where running for his life, not running for an opportunity. He's like running away for his life. Um, Hopefully, he can calm down back there.
Yeah.
But I have heard, Jay, I get in arguments with these Broncos fans. Me and the Broncos have an eternal feud against each other, and it's fun. It's sport for me, but I do follow the training camp notes on him just because their news pops up. Russell Wilson has not had a great camp so far.
mm,
He had a
good to
day
know.
the other day he threw so many interceptions in a day. All their own fan base was kind of saying, "Oh my god, this guy's,"
Yeah.
you know. So, but I I think they have a great defense. So keep that in mind.
Uh-huh.
When we're talking about Broncos training camp, they're playing against one of the best defenses in the league. Um,
Yeah, good
and
point.
I do think honestly, Sean Payton, I think he'll be a difference maker. I think he's just a more creative offensive mind, and I think he can
Uh-huh.
calm down Russell
I
Wilson.
think I think what we'll see that's good stuff. I think what we'll see is a mixture like a balance of last year and prime Russell Wilson. I think we'll see a middle ground somewhere for him. And I think that's a great strategy, Drew. That is it a three quarterback trio of him, Cousins, and who else do you like?
Well, Russell Wilson would be in there. He'd be the last one if you want to try and go three in a row in this way of like I picture going like three running backs in a row and then four wide receivers in a row and then three
Yeah.
quarterbacks in a row.
I had one team where I had like seven receivers, and I was like, whoa. But I think that could work, like you were saying, just kind of go all in on
Yeah.
a position.
I Here's the
So,
thing. It gets so interesting with best ball because Jay, you can go and I've done this. I did this last year. I think this is why you can really, really mess around with best ball. You could go your top three picks at running back and get, let's say, Christian McCaffrey, Nick Chubb, and Derrick Henry.
uh huh.
One, two, three, and then you're done. Don't draft a single running back for the rest of the draft. Well, how much, now you can potentially go 10 wide receivers.
Oh wow, yeah, that's a good
Because
point.
if you want to play it that way, I mean, you can stack teams in a weird way. If you go heavy on a position early,
Uh
it
huh.
allows you to just set it and forget it.
Yeah, I can't wait to learn more about it as I do. I think I just finished my first draft, and I started on like maybe that next day or two after we did our pod.
Yeah.
So they take a while, but I like it, man. I think I'm gonna enter more and
Do
try this quarterback strategy.
try this, Jay. I want you on your next deposit, enter as many cheap drafts as you can
Uh
and
huh.
just think about it as practice. And you'll get to a spot where you open your phone and you've got six picks that you've got to make, something like that. Um,
Uh huh.
and just play it that way and draft your guys and try out all different kinds of teams. There's this guy that I follow on Twitter, James Brimacombe. His Twitter at is Eagles with three Z's. And that's what
Nice.
this guy does. I mean, he drafts best ball all day, every day. This is like his full time job, and he just keeps them in spreadsheets, and he shares all of his information. But he's like, he'll show like, hey, I tried a 2-5-7-3 draft, which means like two quarterbacks, five running backs, seven wide receivers, three tight.
Uh-huh.
And he'll say he'll just have these spreadsheets of different categories of teams that he has, and then he tests it out, and at the end of the year he looks at all of them and says, oh, this format of team build was better than this format, and blah blah
Yeah,
blah.
I love that process. That's
Yeah.
why I love gambling so much, is because even when I lose, I love to learn like why I lost, like why I believed in that team. And that's really, I've gone through the wars, Drew, and I really don't want to hype myself up because I might be shitty at gambling this season. But I tend to think that I've learned a lot over the years. Like, dude, I've been gambling not since like not long after we were at OU. So
Wow.
I love, that's why I'm gonna get into fantasy so hard, 'cause like you were saying, all the different strategies, and then I love to learn like why I fucked up. You know.
Yeah. So that's our divisional or I mean, that's our QB preview. I think we got some really interesting strategy in there, and
We did.
I think we did justice to that list. Who we're just okay about, who we're not so high on, and who we're very high on. Um,
Rogers, baby. I'm doing
yeah.
the double check right now, Drew. Just hip thrusting hard. Hip thrusting hard through that double check
I love
all year.
it.
But you want to move into AFC North with me?
Let's do it, man. I'm pumped for it.
All right. This is one of my favorite divisions. Could be my favorite, honestly. The black and blue division. Four teams. Four teams with legit playoff aspirations here. You got the Bengals, the Ravens, and the Browns are all favored to make the playoffs. All minus money. So
Wow.
very interesting. The Steelers are plus 135. And if you will, Drew, I'll explain kind of implied probability. Plus 135. Basically, the implied probability, I think I broke this down on a podcast a little bit, how you do the math, but that's a 42.5% chance. So that's what Vegas is telling you.
Okay.
Steelers have a 42.5% chance to make the playoffs. So that kind of tells you a little bit how strong this division is, because they're the fourth team running.
Well, they give a little bit of a stronger percentage than I would.
Yeah, I like them. We'll get into them. They'll be the last team.
Okay.
But I really like the coaching in this division. That's something too.
That's a
Why
good.
uh why I find myself, and I just think they play good games against each other. Um,
You
but
know, you want to say one thing. I was listening to uh, Mike Florio today at Pro Football Talk, and they did mention this one. And we'll start wherever you want to. But I do want to just say their hot take today,
yeah,
and I tend to agree with them, is the biggest mystery question mark in football this year is what is Deshaun Watson and the Cleveland
mm,
Browns going to be. So
Bill Cosby.
I'm excited to talk about that team. Did you call him Bill Cosby?
Yeah, yeah. I got some takes on them. Well, we're gonna go start with the Bengals first. They're the
Perfect.
favorites. Plus 155. So I mean, you're getting plus money with the Bengals. They've been knocking on the door, Drew. You know, being a Chiefs fan, they're trying to get that first Lombardi. Joe Burrow, that young core in their prime. Anything less than an AFC title game appearance is going to be disappointing for them this year. There's no doubt. Offensively, They bring in one of your boys, Drew, former Chief, Orlando Brown, and a Boomer Sooner guy. Like that pickup. Um, 4 for $64 million. Pretty reasonable deal, Drew. What did the Chiefs end up? I forget. Remind me what they did at their how they replaced Orlando.
So the Chiefs had such a struggle with negotiation, and no doubt that the Bengals got the cheapest price that the Chiefs never had the
Mm-hmm.
opportunity to bid. He had sworn himself off of the Chiefs long before he took 4 years for 64. Uh,
Gotcha.
but Chiefs knew that their contract negotiation with Orlando Brown Jr. was done on day one of free agency. They went out and gave, I believe, the highest contract of the offseason free agency, or somewhere near there.
Yeah, I
They gave
remember now.
Jawan Taylor,
Yeah,
right
great
tackle.
pickup. Former Jag.
Yeah.
Great player. I
They
do
replaced
like
their
Orlando
left tackle
Brown.
with the stud right tackle.
Yeah. They got another fellow Sooner, Joe Mixon. Had some troubling offseason accusations. Is it feels like it's water under the bridge for this season, but Joe Mixon does tend to get himself in some situations. um, the passing game will be a lead as long as Joe Burrow stays healthy. Him and Chase. I mean,
Who, Mr. Pushoff or Mr.
oh,
Overrated?
oh, I think he's the best receiver in
I,
football. You're trying to
I
talk me out
agree.
of
No, I just I talk trash with them, man.
that? They're kind of your rival.
Yeah, no doubt. And
Um,
they talk more trash than you could ever imagine. Anyway.
yeah, I would be kind of salty if I was a Bengals fan because I do think they're real close to winning, and especially how bad the Rams have looked. We talked about the Rams last pod. I mean, you got to think, man, we let that one slip by. And that kind of reminds me of my Rangers a little bit. The couple World Series they went to like 12 years ago. But anyways, Chase, for my money, I mean, Kelsey and Mahomes might have a better connection, but Burrow Chase, I think, right there is 1B, best connections in all of football.
Yeah. I I would take Burrow and Chase over Cousins and Jefferson. And I
Yeah.
love Cousins and Jefferson.
Yeah. They
But
have that college connection too, bro, where they can just kind of look at each other and know what they. Did you see that playoff game when Burrow won the national title against OU and Jalen Hurts? That
yeah,
semifinal game.
yeah,
OU, that was the worst OU loss I've ever seen. They just didn't even look like they deserved to be on the same field.
no doubt.
And so they've been playing high level football for a long fucking time. And another another reason they're just so good, they all thought the offensive coordinator for the Panthers last year, Joe Brady, they thought he was a wonder kid because he was the LSU offensive coordinator. And he ended up just kind of flaming out with the Panthers.
Hmm.
Don't know what he's doing. That just kind of shows you how good Burrow is. Like, he's solidly the second best quarterback behind Mahomes, in my opinion.
I don't disagree with you for a second on that. I I'm a big fan of the Bengals. It feels like every single year they've had a slow start. Where last year I thought, hell, the Bengals might not even be a consideration for the playoffs. Early in
Yeah.
the year, I mean they were down bad,
Mm-hmm.
and so I was looking at that, and then they had a remarkable turnaround, and they've had that every single year. So it shows you that they are they have had ups and downs, and
Uh-huh.
they've outlasted them, and every single year they play deep into the playoffs. It just is the way it is with them. I mean, they're here and they're here to stay.
Yeah. I
Um,
think Joe Burrow is a little Peyton Manning 2.0 in a way. The way
right.
he processes the game, and he's not athletic. He's one of the pure pocket guys left in the league.
No doubt. You know,
Yeah.
and Orlando Brown Jr. was a great addition for them because of that. You know, he was not the best solution in Kansas City. It almost works out for the best because he he is such a big human being,
Yeah.
but he is not the most nimble on his toes. And you know the way Patrick Mahomes likes to play football.
Uh
He's running 30 yards behind the line of
huh.
scrimmage, 30 yards up, and then he finds like a Mecole Hardman kind of guy,
Uh
you know,
huh.
a 45-second play, and then, you know, it's a touchdown. That's just the kind of BS that Mahomes gets himself to. And
Right.
and Orlando Brown Jr. was not a good left tackle for that.
Mm-hmm.
He's a statue, and that's how Burrow likes it.
Yeah, he definitely works better as a right tackle. I want to say he was a right tackle for at least a year or two at OU.
He's a right
Um,
tackle.
yeah.
He won't let the word get out on him, but Orlando Brown Jr. is a right tackle. And that's the one thing that the Bengals have screwed up is they have a right tackle who they're trying to force to play left, or who's forcing them to play him at
Yeah.
left tackle, and they're having to take their true left tackle and force him to play right. And
Yeah.
it
I'm
just ain't
excited
right.
for Brown to get some continuity. He needs that.
He does need it.
He's been he was a guy at his combine too. He absolutely flamed out in the combine because he isn't. I think he couldn't even do like 5 reps on bench press. Like he just couldn't do like he ran like a super slow 40 time. So he he's got some things to work on. I definitely think right tackle for the Bengals. That they're putting him at right tackle. I
They
forget.
are. No,
Okay.
for Brown, he signed with them with a huge asterisk on there that says you must play me at left tackle.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
So that'll be interesting if they have to go against some good edge rushers. I know that's kind of you were saying
that's
with
how you can beat
Mahomes.
him. That's how you beat the Bengals this year is
Yeah,
you stack that left side with a speed rusher.
yep. And that's been the weakness of the Bengals over the years. And they've done some good things to address it. We'll see. I think Orlando Brown, he being around Joe Mixon, maybe just some good Sooner vibes there. Defensively, well, real quick, they did bring in Irv Smith as an intriguing fantasy tight end. Drew, do you got
Yeah.
anything on him?
Well, I that's a very interesting question. Irv Smith, he was with the Vikings last year, and he kind of got displaced through the T.J. Hawkinson trade. He
Uh huh.
willingly with the Bengals, and he made a lot of hype for himself by saying he was going to have his career year breakout. He's thought it's going to happen, and he knows that he's in a position now where it can happen for him.
Uh huh.
Going to have the opportunity. I love to take wide receivers that have great quarterback, or I mean tight ends that have great quarterbacks, because just by the virtue of it, they're going to get more touchdown opportunities, and
Right.
some of them are going to come their way.
Right.
If
I
he,
love
on
that.
top of that, taps into the potential that he believes he has, I love it.
And Hayden Hurst felt like he was a pretty valuable part of their offense last year. And I think Uzoma on the last year he's on the Jets now. The year before that, I do think this offense likes to use the tight end, so keep that in mind. Um, Defensively, they lost Jesse Bates. That'll be a big blow. But I am a pretty high on safety Dax Hill. Going back to his days at Michigan, he's actually an Oklahoma kid. Don't blame him for not wanting to play that Alex Grinch defensive system you had back then. That was a meltdown on the recruiting boards when we didn't get Dax Hill.
Hmm.
I think he slides in there though. He's going to be a really good player. I like this defense a lot. They drafted rookie defensive end Miles Murphy out of Clemson.
Love it.
Like that. That's a name to keep an eye out for.
No doubt.
But Drew, really, the story with this defense, for my money, it's Lou Anarumo, the
Yeah.
defensive coordinator. I think
Right.
he's about as good as it gets. You know,
I
one
mean, he's
set.
supposed to. I just don't understand why he didn't get a head coaching job this offseason.
Yeah, I don't either. I was begging the Cardinals to go get him. I
Or
I
the
guess
Colts.
he sees something special in Cincinnati. I think, and why I am tempted to put a future on the Bengals, and it's tough. I love the Jets, and I mean the Chiefs are going to be there too. I think those three are,
Yeah.
as we work our way through these divisional previews in the AFC. I really like those three,
You
and my
got.
Jags.
Yeah. You got to keep in mind with the Bengals. I think a big question mark for them is going to be their defensive secondary because they lost Jesse Bates the third,
Yeah.
and he was a big piece of that defense last year. He was great, and they lost their other guy, Eli Apple.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
but again, Eli Apple was available in August or late July, so
Yeah.
was he
He's
that
a guy that
valuable?
slept on.
But slept on so much that teams are willing to wait months and months
Yeah.
until there's an injury and it's like, all right, bring in Eli Apple.
Eli Apple probably wouldn't even be getting as many opportunities as he's gotten if his last name wasn't Apple. It's just, and he played at Ohio State, big recruit. I mean, I think he's
he
always been kind of mid, but I know he was pretty decent with the Bengals.
I think an underrated reason why the Bengals got rid of him this offseason was I think he sort of screwed their chances a little bit when he said Burrowhead.
Oh
You
yeah,
remember that?
yeah.
Burrowhead pissed off Mahomes so
That's when I
much.
felt great about my Chiefs' future. Is when they did that. Just
Uh-huh.
don't wake up.
That
Don't wake up. Patrick Kelsey's the one that took it the most personally, but
right.
don't give that guy any more motivation.
I
I
mean, I
mean,
think the Bengals saw that and said, this guy talks trash and maybe too much, maybe too public, too much. We,
yeah,
you know, we don't need him motivating the other quarterbacks and the other wide receivers to prove it to.
uh
So,
huh,
but it's still, the Bengals should have some unpredictability in their defensive secondary. It's something to watch at least.
yeah, yeah. That and the offensive line, two weaknesses that they gotta. If they answer those two questions with good replacements or whatever, then they definitely can. This can be the year they win the Super Bowl. But I think those are some good concerns, some decent concerns, and maybe would scare me off of a future. But and also you got the Ravens. I mean, they're right there plus 200, just 2-1. The Lamar drama seems to be over. He's got the new contract, and that was just classic NFL media. Just acting like it was a foregone conclusion. He was out of Baltimore. I mean, they really did. And they thought the same thing with Rodgers the year before. Rodgers is a different situation, but I just sometimes they do. There hasn't been a lot of quarterback movement over the years of trades, and I think the media got a little bit ahead of their skis with the Lamar thing. He was injured last year, legitimately. And there is concerns with Lamar's play style with his legs. Is he going to be when at the older he gets and he's not as
What
dynamic?
What are you talking about with the media, by the way,
I
with
just think the
Lamar?
media, I mean, didn't everybody just assume he was out of there?
Well, he requested a trade.
He did, but
It was Lamar. I mean, there was a period, Jay. I don't know if you remember, but he so badly wanted out of the Ravens that he requested a trade and wanted so badly to go talk to a team that was willing to negotiate with him. And
yeah,
to my surprise and to everybody's surprise, no team would talk to him.
I
I
do
didn't get
think
it.
it's Drew. I think a big issue with that is Lamar had no agent. He just was representing himself. And if there was
Right.
an agent involved, they would have signed this deal a year before they did. And I think the NFL media they love a good quarterback. Where is he going story? And I think they did that with Rodgers was supposed to be a Bronco 2 years ago.
Yeah.
I mean that was foregone, and so I wasn't surprised they worked it out. And really, Lamar was trying to take a stand, and he just wasn't in coming off an injury. Didn't have the playoff success. He just didn't have the leverage that he thought he did. I think
Yeah. Yeah, you're
that's
right.
that's where I stand on that whole deal. But they got it past. They got past that. Lamar, he was just playing some hardball, but I don't blame him.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah, and I want to see these guys get paid, but at the same time, I do kind of have that analytical front office mind, and I get the concerns paying this guy the money they did, but they got a damn good team this year, Drew.
Oh, I'm happy they did it. And listen, they've upgraded that wide receiver core. They went from,
Uh huh.
you know, Rashad Bateman as their number one last year after they had traded away Hollywood Brown. And now they've added OBJ with a shockingly large contract, honestly. And they also added Zay Flowers, one of the
Uh
top
huh.
rookie wide receivers in the draft.
Yeah. I'm
So
a big fan of the offensive coordinator Todd Monken too. I
yeah,
think he's really going to know how to use these weapons. Bring him over from Georgia, and he was at Oklahoma State before Georgia, Drew. So very familiar with his schemes. I mean, for a while there, it's honestly the perfect scheme for Lamar because for a while there, Oklahoma State had some athletic quarterbacks, notably J.W. Walsh. Um, he did a great job of just dialing up some plays to get their legs going, especially down in
mm,
the red zone. And at Georgia last year, everybody talks about their awesome defense, but the Georgia offense with Stetson Bennett,
yeah.
um, they were electric. They were the second best offense in the country last year. So you bring
Jay,
him over. Yeah, go ahead.
one of my hot takes with the Ravens for this year is their running back squad. I
Uh huh.
think is going to be not good.
Yeah, I've stayed away from them in drafts.
So here's the thing: a lot of the quote unquote experts are saying draft J.K. Dobbins. My problem with J.K. Dobbins is he's shown a history of struggle to stay healthy.
Uh huh.
Um, and I also heard on Pro Football Talk, Mike Florio was saying he was hearing some things that, other executives in the NFL are also worried about his injury status because of a couple of reasons. Number one, his injury last year had to do with cartilage. Bone
Uh
on
huh.
bone is what he's dealing with, and it's cartilage at such a young age. You know, some of the executives are thinking that's not necessarily an injury that seems like it's going to be gone forever.
Right.
And um, on top of that, who do they have behind him?
Yeah, they usually have a stable of running backs. I don't. Did they still? They still have that Gus Edwards.
Yeah, they have Gus Edwards.
Um, But yeah, I do think this offense is going to be in Lamar's hands a lot. That's why,
Yeah,
yeah, I'm excited to see what they got going. I really like the Zay Flowers kid they drafted.
yeah.
I think there's a lot of potential. And the Ravens, kind of like the Bengals, they just got some OU DNA in their team. Mark Andrews might be one of my favorite players in all of sports. Not only because he's just awesome and went to OU, but he's like diabetic too,
Hmm.
and he's just overcome a lot. And I really like him. That's another jersey I'm gonna have to get.
I mean, I think,
Hollywood Brown. I mean,
yeah, yeah.
they
No,
drafted
Hollywood
Orlando
Brown is gone.
Brown.
They
Yeah,
traded
but
him for the Cardinals.
they like to draft OU guys. They had Tony Jefferson, Ben
They had
Powers back
OBJ,
in the day.
Orlando Brown.
Yeah.
They
So
drafted Orlando Brown.
yeah. So
Yeah.
that scheme, I think it's going to be a little bit different than we're used to seeing with the Ravens over the years. I think it's going to be fun. Um, they were the best run blocking unit in the NFL last year, and
Okay.
only 22nd in passing. So that'll be interesting if it's more of a drop back scheme. How they can hold up. Um, you got anything else on their offense?
I mean, I think it's a little bit of a question mark. Um, I think if they stay healthy at running back and QB and wide receiver, they
Mm-hmm.
have they have some injury risks at each of those positions. That worries me a little bit. Um, but if they can stay healthy, it's an electric team.
Yeah, really is.
It's a big if though. I don't know if you can count on all of those position groups staying healthy throughout the whole year.
Yeah,
The way
yeah,
Lamar
and they've
Jackson
had
uses himself opens him up to injury. Oh, or who's the other OBJ? The Odell Beckham Jr.
yeah,
He's had a big injury history.
uh-huh.
Same with Rashad Bateman. You know,
Yeah, that's
and
a great point.
J.K. Dobbins. I just think you open yourself up to some risk there. I hope they can all stay healthy, but it's a lot of question marks for me.
Yeah, that's that's why I need you, Drew, because I am too much of the positive guy. I need you to be like, hey, Jay, they have some injuries, and now that I'm thinking about it, no team's been snake bitten more of injuries than them over the years, especially last year.
I mean, you could throw the 49ers and the Chargers into that group as well in terms
Uh
of
huh.
snake bitten with injuries. I
Yeah.
personally take a viewpoint of this. Um, I think we don't have all of the information right now as about coaching staffs and training staffs and medical staffs in terms of preventing injuries.
Uh
I
huh.
think you have different personnel across every team that has different philosophies, and I think you're seeing some of them working out fantastically, and I think you're seeing some of them implode in front of our
Hmm.
faces. I think some of this can be blamed on the coaching staff or the training staff or the medical staff or the combination of all of them, but I don't
Uh
think we
huh.
have full data on it yet.
Yeah.
But I do think there's a risk to some of these injury teams, and I don't know which ones are unlucky and which ones are
Yeah.
actual
It's the
correlation.
injury report this year is going to be something I try and get better with. I've always last year I really tried to dial in the injuries, but that's something and refereeing, Drew. I want to get into who are these refs? Who's refing each game? Because I do have a pretty good feel of the refs in the league. But that's something Warren Sharp's been really dialed in on, and I forgot to write down some schedule stuff with these teams. But that's all right. We got enough. We got enough to talk about. Let's get going on their defense real quick. Rocky Asin, they picked him up, an all name team guy. the the defensive coordinator Mac McDonald. He was the guy I referred to on a pod last week with going over Michigan and Jim Harbaugh. He got like a 1 year show clause from some recruiting violation when he was at Michigan. So if he can navigate that, that's another distraction for the team.
Great.
um, but yeah, their defense was seventh in defensive DVOA last year. But there were some head scratching performances with the Ravens. From what I remember, they really did come on when they got Roquan Smith in that Bears trade. I really thought their defense was underperforming before that, though. Um, they need that speed at the linebacker position for their scheme. They got 10.5 wins, Drew, as their over under. That seems kind of high. Ten and a
Yeah,
half.
it does seem pretty high for them.
Yeah, I might look at the under on that. As much as I like Todd Monken, a lot of injury concerns, Drew. Things could go wrong for this team. They really were the team. They're every year. This is a Bill Simmons thing. With he likes to point out there's an NFL team every year that's supposed to be good, and then just kind of have the year from hell.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of the times you'll see it with the Super Bowl loser the next year. You saw it with the Rams last year. I think the Ravens were kind of a team had a season from hell last year.
Yeah.
So maybe their injury luck will turn around. I do think Odell is very intriguing. I've been getting him a little bit in some drafts, at least one draft.
He's certainly cheap. Um, it's ultimately, yeah, I think it's going to come down to because John Harbaugh is just such a staple. I mean, he's in everyone's top 10, most people's top 5 in terms of
Yeah.
current coaches.
And we
And
can't forget about Justin Tucker, the best
Justin
kicker ever.
Tucker, I mean, they're solid all around. You just have those couple of question marks on
Tough
offense.
division. I might look at this under, Drew.
Yeah, I think it might be something to consider.
Very interesting team though in 2023 is the Ravens.
No doubt.
Um Another team, Drew, it's just in the headlines all the time. A lot of the time for the wrong reasons. At 4-1 plus 400, you got the Cleveland Browns. You got any thoughts on the Browns, Drew? I know
I do.
you're telling a little or bit earlier about it.
Well, my thing on the Browns is I love the Browns. If I'm being 100% honest,
I don't want to
because
hear that.
they're one of these teams that knows what its identity is. And it's a running football team. And they have just honestly, very truly, one of the best guys to ever do it running for them in his late prime. I mean, Nick Chubb is just one of these average yards per carry kind of guys
Yeah,
who's up there with the all-time greats in terms of getting like 6+ yards a carry
he's
every
definitely an
time
old
he touches.
school running back.
He is, and he continues to prove it in the weight room, continues to prove it on the football field. They've got a guy called Jerome Ford behind him, and they will just put these guys in. I've watched quite a few of their games last year. They put them in and just go Chubb 4 times in a row and get a first down with Chubb and then get a 2nd and 4, and then
Uh
they'll
huh.
pass with Deshaun Watson. They improved the wide receiver group with Elijah Moore and Cedric Tillman in the draft, who actually I'm kind of high on. A lot of people that I was listening to wanted the Chiefs to draft Cedric Tillman. You add in Amari Cooper, who they've also got.
Uh
David
huh.
Njoku is one of the most athletic tight ends out there. I love this team, and it needs Deshaun Watson to just be okay.
Drew, He's not Deshaun Watson on Finding Your Pirate. He's Bill Cosby. They lose more than anybody else. I like the
Yeah.
optimism here, Drew.
I
And
think
going back
he's.
to
I put
Chubb,
him in the same basket as Russell Wilson and the Broncos. There's only up to go from here, and
yeah.
Bill Cosby. Bill Cosby just needs to be average, and he'll be good enough.
Going back to Chubb real quick. Why
Yeah.
is he second? Why is he not the bona fide number one running back off the board?
Well, a lot
With
of
Kareem
people,
Hunt out of the picture too.
and no doubt. I mean, I agree with you. I think Chubb is one of these guys that I try and take whenever I can. I think you just see people always getting hesitant with a running back who was a stud last year and he's 1 year older this year. You
Yeah.
just see people get hesitant because
He's got to be in a
statistically,
contract year too. Do you know what his contract situation is?
I actually think he might have 2 more years of control.
Okay.
Um, but I mean, you get to a point where you've got um, you've got a guy who, okay, the I saw a chart the other day that kind of showed the tale of two different running backs.
Uh huh.
And basically, there's the 90% or 99% of running backs who have like a solid first 3 years and then they start to decline, 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 decline.
Uh huh.
And then there's like a couple of running backs who can extend that, into their next four, their fourth and fifth and maybe sixth year or
Yeah.
whatever. But then you have guys like Derrick Henry and Nick Chubb, these kind of guys. It's really a tale of two different running backs. If you've got an all-time guy, he's going to be good for a long time. And if you have just your standard old running back, he's going to get worse and worse after his like third year.
I love that call. That's something I've always known with running backs, and that made me think we were talking a little bit about market inefficiencies earlier. I think in year high on these rookie running backs like I am, I think that's something, man, when these guys come out of college, they're ready to just be studs.
Yeah.
They're 3 years in college. I really kind of wish they'd let running backs get a special year, like they get to go a year out earlier, because
I
that would
think.
help them get paid more too if they could leave after sophomore year, maybe.
Well,
But that'll
Mike
never happen.
Florio and Chris Sims wanted to be 1 year deals after their rookie year is a 1 year deal. That's what
I
those
mean,
guys.
yeah, I think the running backs the NFL needs to look at stuff and
Yeah, they do.
um
They need to not be able to franchise tag them 2 years in a row.
yeah. Yeah, it's long overdue with some of that stuff. And I love Gibbs, I love B John, Drew. I've been drafting those guys. I think they're going to be bell cows.
Yeah.
And just talking about I love that you're optimistic and positive with the Browns. They do have a lot of talent, but man, they put that stupid fucking elf on the middle of the field. I can't take them seriously.
Well, they
I'm
got a
sorry.
dog that they literally got a bulldog on the center of the field. They took out the elf. They did
Good.
the whole announcement on Pat McAfee's show.
Yeah, I remember Pat was pissed about that elf.
Oh, dude, he gave them so much hell. So literally, they sent the elf to the Pat McAfee show.
No way.
I swear to God.
I
And
gotta start watching them again.
low key, the elf killed it. The elf did an amazing job on the show, and like he obviously didn't talk, but
Right.
he one of the guys on the show is a big Steelers fan. He went up and shook, you know, did the gesture to shake his hand, and then he pulled his hand away and like waved his hair back or whatever. He did that to the Steelers fan on the Pat McAfee
Hell
show.
yeah.
So legendary.
That's great. So I was trying to watch them the other day. Are they fully on ESPN now, or how do you watch them?
They're still on YouTube Live.
Okay, I'll have to I'll have to throw them on at work.
Yeah, they're so Central Time. It's either yeah, I think it's 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. for you.
Okay, good.
Yeah,
Yeah, I need to during football season. I try and watch them, and there's just so many shows and shit. Drew, I'm sure you can relate. It's
yeah.
hard to fit them in, and also like starting to make my own content and like all the TikToks and shit I've been making. Like I don't have time to listen to all my shows. So that's something I'm gonna have to. I'm also just excited for the season to start because we won't be doing these previews, and it'll just be I won't have to really prepare. I won't have to do many note taking like I have been.
I'm
Because I
gonna try
really want to deep
stuff.
dive these teams.
I'm gonna try some stuff with the in-season podcasts. I want to kind of look week by week of who's outperforming and who's underperforming their final
Yes,
ADP.
yes, that'll be a great segment for us.
Yeah. So
Um,
that's
Do we
that's
even
my
want to
thoughts on
talk
the
offense
Browns.
and defense with the Browns? Or it's just they're just kind of a vibes team, honestly.
They're one of the most talented teams in football in terms of talent right now. Um, in my opinion, I mean, I think they are. They've got Miles Garrett. They signed Juan Thornhill this offseason.
Yeah.
They they have a very talented offense that we just kind of briefly went over. I I do think they're one of the most talented teams, and I don't know if they're going to put it all together because they're in a tough division and a tough conference.
Uh huh.
You
It
said
is.
they're
It's
you said they're
brutal.
favored to go to the playoffs.
They are. Yeah, they're minus money.
I don't think I would take them to go to the playoffs.
Yeah, I
I don't
wouldn't
know.
either. I wouldn't either. Just the history and as Drew, you know the saying, "A tiger can't change his stripes."
Yeah,
Well, well, that a lot of NFL we're deep diving these teams and trying to see what version they're going to be, but a lot of them do kind of have to play against their history a little bit. And the Browns, they'll find a way to screw up.
yeah,
The Lions, I hate that. The Chargers, the Vikings. I mean, there's teams in the NFL that will find ways to screw it up.
yeah.
And that's the beauty of it. And that's one of my favorite things about sports is just the history of it all.
It's
Um,
true.
and the Browns are fighting against it. Nobody's fighting against it more than they are.
It's true.
Um, I do like the them bringing in defensive coordinator Jim Schwartz. He's just when they show him on the sideline, Drew, he just always looks dialed in for whatever reason.
He's been in the league a long time.
Yeah, and they got Dalvin Tomlinson on that defense. It's kind of a stars and scrubs team, a little bit like you see with some NBA teams. I
Yeah.
think I don't know if they have the depth. 9.5 wins is their win total.
Oh, that's tough. I mean, I think they're going to be better than expected, but it might be 9 wins.
Yeah, I think that's a good number.
Um, we'll see. I think they'll be better than they were last year.
Uh huh.
If Deshaun Watson can return to form, they'll be in the playoffs. But
Yeah, they're going to be very interesting. Deshaun gets a full off season now, and I think he's going to look a lot better. I drafted him at least once. We were talking about quarterbacks today. I wish I would have. That's why I need to get in more drafts because I didn't know about that quarterback strategy I could use. Because I was drafting like Deshaun and some of these quarterbacks in that range when I really need to just wait out because I do like that crop of players we talked about.
well, and think about if you can. I mean, just imagine what kind of players and what kind of team you can build if you go 8 wide receivers and running backs in a row.
Yeah, That's exciting to me. I'm gonna get into some drafts when we get off of this podcast.
Awesome.
You think so? You were saying the $5 6-man leagues. Those are the ones you think I'd be into.
So those are fun because of this. This is my bet on that. I think the running backs are top heavy this year.
Yeah,
I think you
I've
can get a
noticed
yeah,
after a certain group, they're all you get into the running back twos, and there's a couple that I like a lot, but after that, it really falls off.
but I mean you can have like Derrick Henry in like the sixth round of these, you
Oh
know.
yeah,
It's crazy these 6-person leagues. And so what I'll do is I will you remember what I said about drafting until it feels uncomfortable.
yeah,
I mix in quarterback and running back so top heavy in those 6-person drafts,
uh huh,
and I may get 2 or 3 stud QBs. I mean,
uh huh.
I've got a team that is Mahomes, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Nick Chubb, Austin Eckler, um, and then let's say like Josh Jacobs. I mean, it's crazy. And then I'll stop after that. I will get like 2 running backs, 2 QBs, 4 RBs, and I'll
Yeah,
stop there. And
yeah,
I'll get
that's a good.
you get uncomfortable drafting your top 6 picks, only QB and running back, and then I'll go 10 wide receivers, Jay.
Yeah, I like that because there's some good receivers that'll get left for you out there.
They will.
And
You
it's a
know, you'll
passing
get to,
leagues, so there's a lot of receivers that are capable out there.
here's what I've noticed. You will get to the end of your draft, and if you're in one of those 6-person leagues and you draft 10 wide receivers in a row, you know who your eighth, ninth, and 10th wide receivers are going to be?
Who
They're going to be Jahan Dotson, George Pickens, and Kadarius Toney.
I love. I'm a little more hesitant on Tony, but I love those first two.
Oh, I feel you. I feel you hesitant on Tony. Let's call it Elijah Moore or Gabe
Hmm.
Davis.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, those are great targets.
Yeah. So
Um,
I'm for it. I love to just go heavy QB and running back and then go bulk wide receiver.
how many? One question, Drew. Then we'll move on to the Steelers. How many quarterbacks do you have on your roster total in these best ball like 6 team drafts? How many quarterbacks are you gonna have?
2 or 3.
Okay, that's what I thought, but I do think it's interesting. I'm learning it on the go.
I mean,
Um,
one thing is you just kind of want to go with where the market
yeah,
is what
that's
I
what we are, Drew. We're market readers.
yeah. Some drafts there's going to be some guys who get overly anxious on drafting quarterbacks
Uh huh.
and they'll draft them early.
I've just found my general strategy, Drew. I'm gonna try and take what you've taught me on this podcast. But really, my strategy is just take who I think is gonna have a good year. Just try and make it as simple as I can. Like I'm trying to think of somebody off the dome, but there's some RB2s out there I like Charbonnet. Just for whatever reason, he might be penciled in as the backup, but with when you get to that level of running backs and it's just like, ugh, I do like that's when I like to go. I think Charbonnet is gonna have a good year. I think George Pickens, as we get to the Steelers, Drew, I think he's gonna have a good year.
I do.
Um, plus 460 to win this division, Drew. Almost 5-1 odds for
Wow.
Mike Tomlin, black and yellow. And like I said earlier, I wanted to see them in the playoffs last year. They were coming on with they got a healthy TJ Watt, Drew. This team is tough to beat. Um,
Now, who do they have? Do they have? Is that Kenny Tiny Hands Pickett at QB?
oh no, you're not gonna be a Pickett guy.
I'm just fucking with you, honestly. But,
I like Pickett. I always like he. I think he's got some moxie to him. I think
yeah.
he's got some athleticism. I think
I
he
mean,
just slept
listen.
on a little bit.
Ultimately, with the Steelers, the thing I love about them is you're talking about a team that Mike Tomlin, I think, has coached them for 20 years, something like that.
Yeah,
And in his 20 years, he's never had a losing season.
yeah. That's one of the all time stats.
That's insane. And so if you're looking at a team like that, whether Kenny Pickett has tiny hands or not, it may matter on some teams. It's not going to matter on the
Uh huh.
Pittsburgh Steelers. I mean, he's always got those boys in shape.
Mm-hmm.
In competition, everyone knows that their roster spot is not 100% secure. There's always someone behind them.
Yeah.
It's exemplified by George Pickens. The way he is. Mike Tomlin whispers to these kind of guys that nobody else can talk to.
Yeah,
You
they
know,
really do have a heritage of just developing, drafting a receiver, and just making them a stud. And they don't always go get their second contract with the Steelers, like
right?
the Antonio Brown saga, him and
That's right.
Le'Veon. Um, but yeah, I love, like you were saying, of Tomlin, man. I mean, just always gets his guys to play with an edge, play with some juice. And this is a team, Drew. We talked about the Bengals, how they kind of struggled earlier in the year last
Yeah.
year. That made me think. My dumbass bet Bengals versus the Steelers week 1 last year, and that was one of the all-time games. The
It
Steelers won
was.
that one.
Yeah.
That was a wild swing, bro. I don't know if you get time, you should look at the game highlights from week 1 of that game. Tomlin, when they're underdogs, man, never. I just don't want to bet against them. I don't.
Yeah.
That's really when they play at their best is when they're underdogs.
I mean, low key, this is one of those teams that you have to look at and think that's you can possibly you can possibly take an over on them just because they finished the season last year very hot. I mean, I
Yes.
remember I was looking at them thinking, "Oh, this is going to be the year that Mike Tomlin does not uh, keep his record
Yeah.
of
I was right
losing."
there with you.
But they turned it around. Those boys turned it around, and I was very pleasantly surprised to see it out of them.
And they're kind of the inverse, Drew, of like we said with the Browns, how they're fighting against their history. I mean, the Steelers, along with the Packers and Patriots. I mean, Cowboys a little bit. I mean, that nobody has more winning history than them. So they just find a way to win.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
I,
what's
I
fun about
like them.
watching them.
They still have Cam Hayward.
Yeah.
Uh,
Cam Sutton, the cornerback, that was a big loss. I think he was their top corner.
they got one of the stud corners from the draft. There was one guy who,
Yeah.
Joey Porter Jr., who was supposed to be a first round draft pick, and he was just one of these guys that found his way out of the first round. And
Yeah.
I remember the I think Pat McAfee show interviewed Tomlin or someone from the Steelers that evening of the draft, and they said, "Yeah, we've got a lot of guys calling us for this first, pick in the second round,"
Really.
and they ended up taking Joey Porter Jr. So I think they got a stud cornerback back there as well. They've got
Mhm.
Minka Fitzpatrick. It's a good defense,
Yeah. And if TJ Watt's healthy, man, it just takes him to another level.
no
I think
doubt.
it's probably a top 5 defense in the league if he when he's healthy. Um and I think the big question with this team overall, Drew, is just the offensive line. They got ex Eagles, the guard Siamalu 3 years, 24 mil, pretty good deal. Broderick Jones was their first
Broderick
round pick.
Jones. Everybody
Um,
wanted him.
and we were talking about Joey Porter, some Penn State stuff. They got another Penn State Nittany Lion, Allen Robinson, old man receiver, coming in
Yeah,
there.
I'm not as excited about that one.
When does he get drafted? Does he get drafted at all, Drew?
Late round, I
I
believe.
might I might keep an eye on that. We said how good they are with receivers. I did a lot of Penn State talk on a podcast last week doing the Big Ten, and they have a knack for developing good receivers at Penn State. So maybe there's a little bit of a pipeline right there. We'll see.
I,
But that's really all I got on the Steelers. They're at 8.5 wins, Drew, as
I
their
want
win
to
total.
I want to give one thing. I just want to put it out there into the ethos right now.
Uh huh.
Since we're talking about, very end of the draft kind of picks that you can take, and specifically we're talking about wide receivers. There is some serious chatter coming out of the Chiefs camp right now about Justin Ross.
Okay. The
Justin Ross,
he's like 6'5". He's a big guy, right?
he's a big guy. He is he's potentially the missing puzzle piece that Chiefs fans have been wondering about. I mean, ever since before the draft, Chiefs are like saying you gotta draft a receiver. This wide receiver core is not it. And then they
Yeah.
take She Rice as a second rounder,
Uh huh.
but all eyes are on Justin Ross.
Great
Um,
nugget right there.
he has been. I have seen nonstop highlights from him in training camp. The big question has been, will he even make the team?
Oh yeah.
Because listen, if he makes the team, he's probably the seventh wide receiver on the team.
Yeah, they got a stable.
They got
That's
a
why I don't
stable.
like drafting any of their players other than Mahomes and Kelsey.
Well, I just want to say about Justin Ross is that kind of the narrative is, will he make the team? If he does make the team, then this guy has the talent, if he stays healthy, to be one of the best undrafted free agents of all time.
He was, yeah, he was very good. I don't, I like that take, Drew. He was very good at Clemson. He was he was with Trevor Lawrence at Clemson, and he had I don't remember what his stats were, but I think he had a great national championship versus Alabama. Uh, when Trevor was a freshman, they absolutely demolished Alabama in the national title game, and he was a big part of that team. And the Chiefs can use a big target like that, downfield threat. I
No
think
doubt.
Mahomes, he doesn't need much separation with his guys.
Well, listen, he is doing it in training camp right now. Exactly what everyone was hoping for with this undrafted free agent signing
Uh-huh.
last year. He was on injured reserve all year. They had shut him down, and now is when he's battling. And I'm seeing highlight reel after highlight reel from Chiefs training camp. This is a guy who's got some serious room for growth, and there is a number one spot on the Chiefs that's ready to be taken.
Hell yeah. I love that take. Let's go. Let's get fired up, Drew. Find your inner pirate. Hell
I'm
yeah.
here, dude.
This is what training camp's all about, getting these rumors.
Yeah, we're in the midst of it.
I love it, man. Before we get out of here, I just want to go over some of the bets I've placed since we've last chatted on the pod. I took the Niners to win the NFC plus 350. I mean, they're one of the favorites, so it wasn't that big of odds. I'm just super I'm just dialed in on the Niners. I just got a feeling they're gonna put it together, go back to the Super Bowl. We took that Seahawks bet to make the playoffs, and we'll get into the NFC North. You want to do that Sunday, Drew?
Yeah. Yeah,
We'll
let's
get
do it.
into the Packers more, but I already placed over 7.5 wins for them, and I'm gonna go make some bets after this too. I'm looking at Steelers over 8.5, and I'm looking at the Browns under.
Okay, that's fair.
So I don't know if you got anything you want to add on that. You want to plug your social media for the people out there, Drew?
You know what? I'm gonna talk about real quick. So the DrewBot launched this week.
Oh yes.
I've been working on specifically the marketing side of it. That's my day job, right?
Uh huh.
Marketing for small businesses. And I want to build this thing as an ultimate resource for Chattanooga small business owners.
That's
Um,
gonna be sweet.
that's what I'm working on right now. But I will tell you, Jay, I have made a fantasy football Drew bot that is nothing short of incredible. I want to
Yeah.
tell you about it real quick.
Yeah.
If
Go for it.
so, just in a minimal amount of training this AI chat bot, here's so it's able to search the web for me. And so I basically the one trick that it knows is ask it a this or that in
Yeah.
terms of NFL players. So if you say Chris Godwin or Mike Evans, then what the DrewBot is going to do is it's going to pull the 2022 stats from Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. It's going to pull the stats that are relevant to best ball PPR.
Uh huh.
So right, it's going to go game by game, and it's going to say, here's how many points he scored, here's how many yards he made, here's how many touchdowns he made,
Uh huh.
and it's going to compare that against each person's ADP,
Love
and
it.
it's going to make a recommendation based on both the empirical data from 2022 and compared against their ADP. And
Dude,
it's going to,
that's sick.
you ask it this or that, one player versus another player, and it's going to give you a breakdown of both of their stats. And it's going to say, based off of this data, I recommend this player.
And you're just doing all this with a little click of the button, aren't you?
Little click of the button. Yeah.
That's so cool, man. I can't wait to learn more about tech stuff with you. I think that's a segment we can have. I've told you how I kind of want to build this Sunday pod with you, kind of in the image of Bill Simmons and Cousin Sal's pods. They do parent corner at the end of their episode. Well, we don't really have we don't have kids yet, but we can have like a little tech corner because I think
Yeah.
that's
Love it.
something me and you are both into.
Love it. Hey, Jay, before we,
Something you think of throughout the week or whatever. That's kind of how we can end our pod.
I love it. Before we end the pod, can I please get your reaction on three things?
Yeah, shoot.
I just tagged you on Twitter in three different Justin Ross videos.
All
They're
right.
each like 10 seconds long. Could you just take a quick look, and with your
Yeah,
football eye, I want to know your thoughts on him.
pulling it up. Man, he's so much bigger than these defensive backs.
Mm-hmm. And we got some big DBs.
Yeah, I like that Chiefs young secondary, man. I do. Um, I know I got excited with the Jets at 9-1 that win the AFC, but I do. It's the Chiefs. As long as Mahomes is there, it's the Chiefs division. Yeah, he's looking good, man. Oh,
Yeah.
that last one, the little comeback route.
Right.
Yeah, that
That
was
was
nice, man.
a stop on a dime.
Hell yeah. Well, people, that's gonna end us for Find Your Inner Pirate. I think Drew and we both find our inner pirates on this pod together, and we're just gonna keep it rolling. Um, and that's all I got, buddy. You got anything else?
Another great one, Jay. I'm super excited to do the next one.
Oh
I
yeah.
we're on a good momentum here. I'm excited for the season, and I'm excited for what we're doing here.
You want to get into tight end group next pod?
Love it.
All right. Well, that's gonna be it, guys. Go ahead and follow us. Do all that good stuff if you're listening. Peace.
Peace.